After being reborn, I've made up my mind to do two things. First, I'll write the name of my fiancé Fu Zijing's beloved, Zhao Rui, on the marriage registration form, letting that despicable pair have each other. Second, I'll take all my savings and head south to start a business. In my past life, Fu Zijing, pitying his childhood sweetheart Zhao Rui, secretly gave her the money I had painstakingly saved over 5 years for our wedding, so she could buy an apartment over 2 decades later. Zhao Rui became a multimillionaire through property demolition compensation. Meanwhile, I lived in a dilapidated, drafty shack in the countryside, disheveled and worn out, tirelessly caring for Fu Zijing's bedridden mother while raising 2 children. On the very day I died from exhaustion, Fu Zijing was in the big city, dressed in a sharp suit, holding flowers to celebrate Zhao Rui's 50th birthday. Then, in the blink of an eye, I was reborn. The staff dormitory was bustling with people coming and going. Seeing me hurrying inside, those who knew me all started talking to me. Lame, I ran into Engineer Fu on the street today. He was at the gold shop buying a ring. It must be your engagement ring, right? Engineer Fu is educated, handsome, and knows how to be romantic. Everyone's so jealous you're marrying him. Absolutely. There really aren't many men as devoted and sincere as Engineer Fu anymore. Kind and loyal, ha. Fu Zijing's kindness and loyalty were all reserved for Zhao Rui. As for me, he just treats me like a servant, someone he can summon and dismiss at will, expecting me to toil without complaint. After all, this old servant loves him so much, thinks only of him, and treats his every word as gospel. With me around, he has absolutely no worries holding him back. I didn't respond to anyone, just quickly made my way through the crowd and went home. After closing the door, I went straight to my room, opened the chest by the bed, and reached inside to open the familiar tin box that lay within. The sight of the neatly stacked money in the tin box made me let out a sigh of relief. Thank goodness, there's still time. I picked up the money from the tin box and counted it carefully. Exactly $5,000, not a cent more or less. This was the salary I had painstakingly saved over 5 years of hard work, scrimping and saving every penny. In my past life, I scrimped and saved every penny. Tightening my belt to stash away this money, dreaming of marrying Fu Zijing, having children, and building a happy life together. But how did Fu Zijing repay me? Behind my back, he secretly gave all that money to his childhood sweetheart, Zhao Rui, to buy an apartment. Afraid I'd find out the truth and make a scene, he had the nerve to lie to me, claiming the money was stolen by a pickpocket on his way to buy wedding supplies. I didn't doubt his word for a second. I even tried to comfort him, saying the money was gone but we could always earn more. Later on, Fu Zijing's mother fell down the stairs and broke her leg. He said she was ill and needed someone to look after her. Feeling his urgency, I offered to quit my job and go back home to care for his mother. No sooner had I returned to the countryside to care for his mother than my job was taken over by Zhao Rui. There I was in the countryside, tending to his mother's every need, while he was in the city, all lovey-dovey with Zhao Rui. Later, Fu Zijing was transferred to work in a bigger city and, of course, took Zhao Rui along to enjoy the good life. Yet he didn't spare a single thought for me, his wife. I spent half my life tending to my mother-in-law and raising 2 children. Nearing 50, I thought I could finally enjoy life, only to discover that Fu Zijing had been secretly maintaining a second family with Zhao Rui behind my back. If Zhao Rui hadn't returned later, smugly selling the house and revealing the truth to me, I would have gone to my grave never knowing Fu Zijing's true nature. Now that I know the truth, I will never marry Fu Zijing in this lifetime. I'm taking my money and leaving this place for good. I took the money out of the iron box, tucked it on my person, and walked out the door. Since I planned to go south to do business, the first order of business was to check the train schedule. I headed straight for the train station. On the way, I saw Fu Zijing and Zhao Rui walking intimately side by side, carrying large and small bags as they emerged from a shop. Spotting Fu Zijing and Zhao Rui, I ducked into a nearby shop to avoid them. To my surprise, the pair followed me right in. Fu Zijing was there to accompany Zhao Rui on a shopping trip. His eyes were only for her, completely oblivious to my presence. The two browsed the goods at a counter some distance away from me. As she browsed the selection, Zhao Rui asked Fu Zijing in a sweet, coquettish voice, "Brother Fu, if you give me Sister Lame's job, do you think she'll agree?" But wasn't it my job? Didn't it only go to Zhao Rui after I resigned to care for Fu Zijing's mother when she broke her leg? Could it be that in my past life, Fu Zijing had already planned to make me quit so Zhao Rui could take my place? I was utterly astonished, my gaze shifting to Fu Zijing. A gentle smile graced Fu Zijing's usually icy face. And his voice was remarkably soft. She'll have to agree whether she wants to or not. Don't worry, I've already figured out a plan. In my past life, whenever Fu Zijing spoke to me, it was always strictly business with a face as stiff as a board. I had always assumed that was just his personality. It never occurred to me that the reason he was never gentle with me was simply because I wasn't the person he wanted. Hearing Fu Zijing's words, Zhao Rui's face lit up with a beaming smile. Thank you so much, Brother Fu, you're too kind to us, me and my son, it's the least I can do. At Fu Zijing's reply, Zhao Rui's eyes darted thoughtfully, adopting a pitiful and delicate expression. Brother Fu, it's just that Xiao Gang and I are new here, and we really shouldn't keep imposing on you. If only we had a place of our own to stay, that would be wonderful. Zhao Rui bit her lip, looking utterly pitiful and heart-wrenching, seeing her like that. Fu Zijing couldn't bear it. He comforted her softly, don't worry, I'll figure something out about the housing situation. How could you possibly figure it out? You're stuck living in a dorm yourself right now. With that heart-wrenching expression of Zhao Rui's, even an ordinary man would find it impossible to refuse, let alone Fu Zijing who already had feelings for her. Fu Zijing thought for a moment before finally speaking up. I've already sorted out the housing situation for you. Lamei's father was a long-time worker at the factory. Since he passed away on the job, the factory leadership decided to offer a 3-bedroom apartment at a low price as compensation, with priority given to Lamei to apply for it. I've made a decision, I'll let you apply for that apartment instead. Zhao Rui couldn't hide the surprise in her eyes. Really, but, wouldn't Sister Lamei object? We just won't tell her, Fu Zijing replied nonchalantly. This doesn't seem right, Zhao Rui said, her words suggesting hesitation, but then she quickly changed tack. But, Brother Fu, I'm new here, I have no money, and I have a child to support. Even if you let me apply for the apartment, I wouldn't be able to pay for it. Fu Zijing was completely charmed by Zhao Rui's sweet, dependent act. Don't worry about the down payment, he reassured her, I'll figure something out, just relax and leave it to me. Hearing this, Zhao Rui's tears instantly turned to a smile. Thank you, Brother Fu, you're so good to me and my son, Xiao Gang, and I will never forget your kindness for the rest of our lives. There's no need for such formalities between you and me. The two of them picked out some daily necessities and walked off side by side, completely unaware of my presence not far away. I never imagined Fu Zijing would go this far for Zhao Rui. So, in my past life, the subsidized apartment Zhao Rui bought was actually compensation from the factory allocated to me after my father's death in the line of duty, and Fu Zijing, behind my back, took it upon himself to snatch the apartment and give it to Zhao Rui, even paying for it with the money I had painstakingly saved for our wedding. She used my money to buy my welfare apartment. Zhao Rui didn't spend a single cent of her own and reaped all the benefits. What profound affection Fu Zijing holds for Zhao Rui. Had they not used me, I couldn't have helped but sing praises for their grand romance. But now, only 3 words flood my mind. That despicable pair. I was originally headed to the train station to buy a ticket, but after hearing Fu Zijing's words, I immediately changed my mind and turned straight to the factory to find the supervisor. When I explained my reason for coming, my supervisor was taken aback. Since you and Engineer Fu are about to get married, we discussed this matter directly with him instead of you. He said he would prepare the documents for you to sign and then submit them. However, we've reminded him several times already, and he still hasn't gotten them ready. Hearing my supervisor's words, I suddenly remembered something that happened in my past life, around this same time back then. Fu Zijing came home with a document for me to sign, so that document was the housing compensation paperwork. In my past life, I believed Fu Zijing signed his name without even reading the contents. That's how Fu Zijing managed to exploit the loophole. This time around, I'm going to strike first, I told the supervisor. He is him, and I am me. This compensation from the factory is for my father, and it can only go to me. His only daughter, Fu Zijing, and I aren't married. He's just an outsider. He has no right to make decisions for me. I will handle the housing matter myself. My boss found my reasoning sound and handed me a new set of home purchase documents to fill out. Without delay, I filled out the forms, paid the 2,000 yuan deposit on the spot, and received the keys to my new home. If Zhao Rui and Fu Zijing think they can scheme their way into getting my house in this lifetime, they're living in a fantasy. With my new keys in my pocket, I stopped at a roadside wonton shop for a big, steaming bowl before heading back to the staff dormitory. Fu Zijing was already back, sitting in the living room with a grim expression. Ever since we set our wedding date, I gave Fu Zijing a copy of my dormitory key, and he gave me one of his. Before, Fu Zijing and I kept our distance and didn't interfere with each other. Now that Zhao Rui and her son have arrived, Fu Zijing, feeling sorry for them having nowhere to stay, voluntarily gave up his own dormitory for them. He, on the other hand, moved into the other vacant room in my dormitory. Seeing me return so late, Fu Zijing was clearly displeased. He snapped at me, "Young Lame, where have you been? Why are you only getting back now?" Normally, if he so much as frowned, I'd have scurried over to him like an eager puppy. Today, I replied coldly, "I had some business to take care of." Fu Zijing sneered, "What business could you possibly have?" I ignored Fu Zijing and turned to enter my own room. Fu Zijing was tall, handsome, and cultured, an engineer at the factory. I loved him to the core and had always gone to extreme lengths to fawn over and please him. He had never been rebuffed by me before. My attitude left Fu Zijing utterly disconcerted and at a loss. Seeing me head straight into my own room without a word, his frustration was palpable. He immediately got up and followed me in. "Young Lame, what's gotten into you today? And another thing, where has all the money you saved gone? There's not a penny left." So he'd already gone through my money box while I was out. I looked at him with a cold sneer. "You went through my things, Fu Zijing. What's the meaning of rummaging through my box without my permission?" I love Fu Zijing, foolishly and unconditionally devoting everything I have to him. Fu Zijing had long since treated my money and all my belongings as his own private property. He never in his wildest dreams expected me to confront him like this. Fu Zijing's face flushed bright red. It's not that I was thinking, since we're getting married soon and need to buy things for the wedding, and you've saved up quite a bit, right? I just thought I'd borrow it for now." Ha, he used the same excuse in my past life to swindle my money and give it to Zhao Rui. Now, in this life, he's trying to pull the same trick again. He really has no shame, I said coldly. "If you want to buy things for the wedding, use your own money. What are you doing rummaging through my trunk? Do you not intend to pay for your own wedding? You expect me, a woman, to foot the bill? Aren't you afraid of becoming a laughingstock if word gets out?" My tone and attitude infuriated Fu Zijing. Having never been spoken to like that before, he immediately shouted, "Young Lame, what is your problem?" I stared coldly at the furious Fu Zijing. "What, am I wrong? Who in this factory doesn't have the man pay for the wedding? Why should it be my money for us? Are you even a man?" Fu Zijing, utterly humiliated by my words, stormed out and slammed the door. I closed the door and checked the room. It had been ransacked and looked a complete mess. Fu Zijing must have been searching my room for the money. Good thing I was reborn and got to it first, taking the money away, otherwise, I'd fall right into his trap again. Fu Zijing didn't come back that night. And I didn't bother looking for him. I knew Fu Zijing was waiting for me to go find him and beg. After all, in my past life, I never even spoke a harsh word to him, let alone talked back. Getting talked back to like that by me all of a sudden was a blow to his pride. Slamming the door on his way out was his way of making a statement. Fu Zijing is definitely waiting for me to grovel and coax him like I used to, but this time, he's overthinking it. I didn't bother asking where Fu Zijing was last night. He was probably just with Zhao Rui anyway. Fu Zijing is so infatuated with Zhao Rui, he'd go through fire and water for her. By stepping aside for Fu Zijing and Zhao Rui, I thought he'd be thrilled. He'd surely seize the chance to be all lovey-dovey with her. But I was wrong, to my surprise. Fu Zijing came back on his own the very next morning. He brought breakfast, steamed buns, fried dough sticks, and soy milk. It was still steaming on the table. When I came out after washing up, he was actually smiling and beckoning me over. "Lame, breakfast is ready." Well, free food is free food. I sat down at the table, picked up a steamed bun, and started eating. Fu Zijing kept eyeing me, but I had no intention of talking to him and just kept my head down, focusing on my food. Seeing this, Fu Zijing had no choice but to speak up first. "Lame, I apologize for my poor attitude yesterday. Is the sun rising from the west?" I looked up at him with a sneer. A flicker of embarrassment crossed his face, but he pressed on. "A colleague of mine had some family trouble and needed money. I lent her all the money I had saved for our wedding supplies, so now, we'll have to use your money to buy them." Ha! If I were still the young Lame from my past life, whose whole world revolved around Fu Zijing, I would have swallowed his ridiculous lie without a second thought. But I was a completely different person now. I sneered inwardly, knowing full well he was lying. His goal was to swindle money out of me to buy a house for his sweetheart. Zhao Rui, he wasn't the only one who could lie. I, young Lame, could play that game too. I swallowed the bun, took a big gulp of soy milk, and let a pained expression settle on my face. I'm sorry about my attitude yesterday, there was a reason for it. My money was stolen when I went shopping, so I was just, what? Fu Zijing stood up, visibly shaken. The excuse I gave was the same one he had used to lie to me in my past life. In my past life, I chose to believe his lie. But this time, Fu Zijing looked at me with a face full of suspicion. He didn't believe a word I said, yet he couldn't find a reason to doubt me either, after all. I had always followed his every word and treated him like a god. Fu Zijing simply couldn't believe I would lie to him. If he couldn't get the money from me, there was no way he could buy a house for Zhao Rui. In this day and age, the monthly salary is only a little over 100 yuan. 2,000 yuan is no small sum. It's not the kind of money you can just borrow on short notice. Fu Zijing stormed out, slamming the door behind him in a rage once again. I paid no mind to Fu Zijing's impotent fury. After breakfast, I headed to the factory. I planned to leave this place and head south to start a business, so naturally, I was done with this job, but I wasn't about to let that bastard Fu Zijing and that bitch Zhao Rui get their hands on it for free. I'm planning to sell my job to get a lump sum of money. The factory is doing quite well right now, so there are plenty of people eager to buy a position. Word got out that I was selling my job, and several interested parties approached me to inquire about the price. My asking price wasn't high, and I eventually reached an agreement with someone. He wants to find a new job for his wife, but he's short on cash. He needs to go back and discuss it with her first, then figure out how to borrow some money. After settling on a time with him, I headed back to my place in high spirits. I had just sat down and taken a sip of water when Zhao Rui showed up. Zhao Rui had come specifically to get under my skin. Swaying her slender waist, she sauntered over and announced with a smug look, "Sister Lame, Brother Fu spent the whole day with me yesterday helping me buy things I needed. I didn't bring any money, so it was all on his salary. He even said that since I'm new here and have no money to live on, he'll give me half of his salary to use from now on." Zhao Rui said these exact same words to my face in my past life. I was shaking with anger, called her shameless, and made a huge scene with Fu Zijing. In the end, I gained nothing from it. Instead, it only made Fu Zijing grow more and more disgusted with me. Now, in this life, Zhao Rui is pulling the same old trick again. I feel nothing. My gaze fell on Zhao Rui, and I realized the brand new clothes she was wearing looked strangely familiar. Wait, isn't that the outfit I bought for my wedding? When did Zhao Rui take my clothes? Seeing that I ignored her provocation and was only staring at her clothes, Zhao Rui's expression grew even more smug. Knowing I didn't bring many clothes with me, Brother Fu felt sorry for me and gave me your new outfit. Please don't be upset. I looked coldly at Zhao Rui. It's fine, I bought those clothes with my own money. Fu Zijing gave them to you without my permission. Taking something without asking is theft. I'll settle the matter of payment with him myself. Zhao Rui scoffed at my words. Who are you trying to fool? You wouldn't dare ask Brother Fu for money. With the way you are, landing a marriage with him was a stroke of incredible luck. Don't think I can't make him break up with you right now. Does Fu Zijing really obey you that much? I retorted with a cold laugh. What exactly are you to him? Cornered by my question, Zhao Rui grew flustered and defensive. What am I to him? Don't you know? If my parents hadn't forced me into that marriage back then, I would have married Brother Fu. You wouldn't even be in the picture. Is that so? So after your husband passed, you sought out Fu Zijing to rekindle your old flame, with no outsiders around. Zhao Rui didn't hold back. Yes, exactly as you think. I couldn't help but laugh at the sheer audacity written all over her face. What a touching display of loyalty between you two lovebirds. You want Fu Zijing, he's all yours. Now get out of my sight, and don't you dare come back. I'm sick of the sight of you. Zhao Rui never expected me to act like a completely different person. Having failed to get what she wanted, she glared at me with pure hatred. You'll pay for this. I'll be right here. You're just a gold digger who latched onto Fu Zijing after your husband died, aren't you? You want his money, you want my job, you even want my apartment. If Fu Zijing had nothing, would you still be batting your eyelashes at him? Listen up, whatever you do is none of my business. Take Fu Zijing, he's yours. I don't want him, but my job, my money, and my home. Young Lame will never let you two parasites use them as stepping stones. Zhao Rui, her thoughts laid bare by me, shot me a look of pure fire. Having gained no advantage, she made to leave, but the moment she turned her head and saw the person entering the courtyard, she immediately changed her mind. The fury and venom on her face vanished in an instant, replaced by a pitiful, tearful look of distress. Covering her face, she wailed plaintively, "Sister Lame, you've misunderstood me and Brother Fu. We're just like siblings. It's absolutely not the kind of relationship you're thinking of." As soon as she finished speaking, tears began streaming down her face. I didn't even need to look to know that Fu Zijing had returned. Sure enough, Fu Zijing appeared in the doorway right after. Seeing Zhao Rui in this state, his heart ached for her. Without even asking for an explanation, he shouted at me in anger, "Young Lame, what have you done now? Sister Lame said I'm only after your money. She refuses to give me the job, she won't let me have the apartment, and she even slandered me, saying our relationship is improper." Zhao Rui spilled everything I had intended to say to Fu Zijing, holding nothing back. I heard Zhao Rui even brought up the topics of work and housing on her own. Fu Zijing's expression turned ugly. He never intended to expose his dark thoughts in front of me. Having his intentions laid bare like this was utterly humiliating. After the shame and anger, Fu Zijing flew into a rage and yelled at me, "Young Lame, you've gone too far. Apologize to Rui." I always knew Fu Zijing was cruel, heartless, and unfeeling towards me. I always knew he was just using me. Even so, my eyes still welled up when he blindly and unfairly sided with Zhao Rui. A lifetime of love, a lifetime of devotion, a lifetime wasted, and all for a man like this. I'm just not worth it. I weep with sorrow for the ignorance and pitiful state of my past self. Seeing my eyes well up, Fu Zijing was taken aback, then flusteredly gestured for Zhao Rui to leave. After Zhao Rui had left, he closed the door and sat down opposite me. "Lame, we need to talk." I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and stared at him coldly as Fu Zijing, for once, offered an explanation of his own accord. "Lame, there's absolutely nothing between me and Rui. Our relationship is completely innocent. I just pity her. You know how pitiful her situation is now. Her husband is gone, and she has a child to raise. I only wanted to help her." If I hadn't lived through the events of my past life, I would have believed his explanation. But no matter how much he pleaded, it was useless. I continued to stare at Fu Zijing in stony silence. Fu Zijing had never seen me like this. After a moment's hesitation, he reached out to take my hand. "Lame, I didn't mean to keep the house situation from you. Rui and her child have nowhere to live, and it wouldn't look good for them to stay in my dormitory indefinitely, so I thought it best to arrange a place for Rui to move into first. That way, you wouldn't be upset with me over her anymore." How noble sounding his words were. But why on earth should I give up my own house for Zhao Rui? I asked him, enunciating each word deliberately. "Zhao Rui is no relation of mine. Why should I give up my own home for her?" Fu Zijing was at a loss for words for a moment before finally saying, "Rui and I grew up together. I owe her parents a debt of gratitude, so I have to repay her. If you want to repay her, do it yourself. Why drag me into it? If I remember correctly, you've already given her quite a bit of money, haven't you? You even promised to give her half your salary. Isn't that enough to settle your debt? A debt of gratitude isn't something you can just settle with money. Lame, can't we just help Rui this one time? I'm begging you." "No," I refused Fu Zijing's plea. Frustrated by my stubborn refusal, Fu Zijing snapped, "We're getting married soon. Husband and wife are one, and the husband is the head. You must obey me." "And what if I don't? If you don't listen to me and refuse to give up the house for Rui and her son, then you can forget about marrying me." Fu Zijing had finally said the words he'd been wanting to tell me all along. In my past life, after my father's death, I clung to Fu Zijing desperately, seeing him as my only salvation. My greatest fear back then was Fu Zijing breaking up with me. I was terrified of him abandoning me. So even though I knew his closeness to Zhao Rui was inappropriate, I swallowed my anger and endured the humiliation in silence. I always believed that if I was obedient enough, kind enough, and gave enough for him, Fu Zijing would understand my heart. He would then cherish me and treat me well. Unfortunately, the young Lame of my past life never saw that day. She died on that cold, lonely, exhausting, and painful winter night. The young Lame of this life won't be so foolish. I stared at Fu Zijing for a long moment and said slowly, "Fine, then we won't get married." Fu Zijing was caught off guard by my words, staring at me in a flustered panic. I looked at Fu Zijing coldly. "Since we're not getting married, you have no reason to stay here. Pack your things and leave, now." Fu Zijing gaped at me, his expression one of utter, brain short-circuiting disbelief. It was no wonder Fu Zijing was so shocked. The young Lame of his past life would never have spoken to him like that, let alone thrown him out. Young Lame gave her very life for him. Now that we've torn off the mask of civility, I can't stand to be under the same roof with that heartless, ungrateful man for another minute. I threw all of Fu Zijing's belongings out of the room and hurled them at his feet. The shock and disbelief on Fu Zijing's face turned to panic. Once he realized I wasn't joking and was truly throwing him out, he fled in a fluster. After speaking with Fu Zijing to that extent, given his pride and self-respect, I thought that was the end of the road for us. I had underestimated Fu Zijing's determination to help Zhao Rui. For the woman he loved, he was willing to do anything, including threatening and slandering me to force my compliance. 3 days later, I returned after buying a southbound train ticket, ready to sell my job to the person I had negotiated with and leave immediately. When something unexpected happened, I ran into Zhao Rui's son, Xiaojiang, in the yard. As soon as he saw me, he charged at me with pure hatred in his eyes. I had no idea what he was trying to do, so I instinctively stepped aside. Xiaojiang crashed heavily to the ground with a thud. His head hit the pavement and started bleeding almost immediately. Without thinking, I instinctively reached out to help him up. That little brat grabbed my hand and sank his teeth into it with a vicious bite. The pain made me fling him away with all my might, and Xiaojiang tumbled to the ground once more. He let out a blood-curdling scream, crying out, "Yang Lame is hitting me." Hearing Xiaojiang's piercing shriek, Zhao Rui came running over immediately. Ignoring Xiaojiang, she grabbed my hand and demanded, "Yang Lame, what gives you the right to hit someone?" Zhao Rui was screaming and sobbing, accusing me, while Xiaojiang clung tightly to my leg. Colleagues passing by saw the commotion and rushed over to ask what was happening. Zhao Rui and her son kept insisting that I had hit them. When the incident happened, there was no one else around, only Xiaojiang. The way everyone looked at me changed. Zhao Rui shrieked and wailed, demanding I be taken to the police station. I naturally denied everything I hadn't done, and just as the commotion was at its peak, Fu Zijing showed up. Fu Zijing stopped Zhao Rui, who was about to call the police to have me arrested. He said to leave the matter to him and that he wanted to have a proper talk with me. By now, I had a pretty good idea of what Fu Zijing and Zhao Rui, mother and son, were trying to achieve by framing me together. Just as I expected, the first thing Fu Zijing said to me was, "There are witnesses and physical evidence for Xiaojiang's injury. You can't get away with this. The police will definitely arrest you." I stared quietly at Fu Zijing, under my gaze. He seemed ashamed and lowered his head before continuing, "I can persuade Rui not to call the police. You won't be arrested for intentional assault and have a criminal record, but you have to show some sincerity. Agree to one thing for me." Watching Fu Zijing with his head bowed, speaking so clearly and deliberately, my heart sank into a pit of icy despair. I always knew they were a nest of vipers, utterly despicable, but I never imagined they would scheme against me with such vicious insanity. I was far too naive. I thought by stepping aside and letting them have their way, I could wash my hands of the whole affair. I never considered that if they had an agenda from the start, why would they ever willingly let me go? I'm furious with my own carelessness and stupidity. Fu Zijing willingly became an accomplice for Zhao Rui and her child. Things have come to this, and I have no other choice. I don't want a criminal record. I don't want to waste my energy. And I don't want to get tangled up with those two good-for-nothings. My voice was hoarse as I spoke. You're not getting the house. I'd rather die than give it to Zhao Rui. My father paid for it with his life. Fu Zijing was silent for a moment before replying, "We can forget about the house, but you have to give your job to Rui. Don't worry, we'll still get married as planned. I'll take care of you from now on." He probably thought I was desperate to marry him. Hearing him say that just made me sick. I couldn't stand being around Fu Zijing for another minute. It's a good thing I'd long since given up on marrying him or enduring that living hell of an existence. Getting as far away from that scumbag Fu Zijing is now my top priority. Weighing all the options, I agreed. "Fine, give the job to Zhao Rui. Now you can leave." My agreement didn't bring Fu Zijing the joy I'd expected. He actually tried to reach out and hug me. "Lame, you've been wronged in all this. Don't worry, once we're married, I'll treat you right. I promise I won't let you suffer." He probably fancied himself some great romantic. Fighting back a wave of disgust, I sidestepped to avoid him. I reminded him coldly once more, "You can leave now." Fu Zijing didn't leave. He actually had the nerve to say he had nowhere to go and ended up staying in my guest room again. I knew he was no good. I knew he and Zhao Rui were both despicable, shameless scoundrels. To prevent them from scheming again, I had no choice but to play along. "Well, I've already bought the train ticket. In 5 days, I'll be out of here and I'll never have to see those two disgusting creeps again." Fu Zijing seemed like a different person, no longer acting so high and mighty. Instead, he was diligently preparing breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, trying to get on my good side, but now, all I feel when I see him is disgust and revulsion. Fu Zijing took the initiative to buy me candies and biscuits to win me over, and even asked me about the details for the wedding ceremony. It seems his conscience finally got the better of him. He stopped spending all his time with Zhao Rui, fussing over her every need, and instead started orbiting around me all day. He didn't even mind when I gave him the cold shoulder. He kept discussing the wedding banquet with me, who to invite, and what I should wear for the ceremony. On the surface, he seemed genuinely invested in this marriage, but I felt nothing. I'd suffered enough in my past life. I would never believe that a scoundrel like Fu Zijing could ever truly change his ways. To Fu Zijing's eager attempts to please me, I responded with only a few icy words, "Figure it out yourself." These were the exact cold words Fu Zijing said to me in my past life when I was meticulously preparing for our wedding. I was simply returning the favor. Fu Zijing's expression was complicated, but he quickly resumed speaking to me in an ingratiating tone. "Lame, here is our marriage application. I've already signed it, and now I'm just waiting for you. Once you sign it, we can go get our marriage license today." I gave a slight, wry smile at Fu Zijing's eager demeanor. "Just put it over there. Our wedding is in 3 days. We can't put it off any longer. It's best we get the marriage certificate today." I didn't understand why Fu Zijing was so insistent on getting the certificate with me. To avoid any complications, I didn't want Fu Zijing to see what I was really thinking. I said flatly, "You go ahead with your business. I'll go get the certificate myself after I sign." I've been giving him the cold shoulder for days, so my sudden willingness caught Fu Zijing completely off guard. "All right then," he said, pleasantly surprised. "I'll go deliver the invitations first. You sign the papers, and we'll go get the marriage certificate together later." Fu Zijing went out cheerfully, clutching a few invitations, while I held the marriage application with a cold sneer. Just as I was about to tear it up and throw it away, Zhao Rui showed up at my door again. Fu Zijing hadn't gone to see Zhao Rui these past few days. No matter what tricks she tried, she couldn't get him to leave my side. Fu Zijing's change in attitude displeased Zhao Rui, so she seized the opportunity now that he was no longer visiting me to come and pick a fight. "Young Lame, even after all this, you're still clinging to brother Fu. You really have no shame, do you?" I looked at Zhao Rui with a thin, insincere smile. "I could still learn a thing or two from your shamelessness. After all, Fu Zijing and I are, by name at least, engaged to be married, not like you, hanging around him all day without any claim to him, just trying to be the other woman." My words hit the nail on the head and infuriated Zhao Rui. She glared at me with pure venom. "You don't actually think you've won, do you? Listen, if you know what's good for you, you'll break off the engagement with brother Fu immediately, otherwise, you'll be in for a world of hurt." "And what if I don't?" "Zhao Rui, I know you want to marry Fu Zijing. He's an engineer now, earning over 100 yuan more a month than the average worker, with a bright future ahead. You want to take my place, but why on earth should I do you that favor?" I stared at Zhao Ruiyuan with a cold sneer, deliberately picking up the marriage application and shaking it in Zhao Rui's face. Zhao Rui's face fell at the sight of the marriage report, a flash of resentment flickering in her eyes. "Young Lame, brother Fu doesn't have any feelings for you at all. How could he possibly marry you? All his suffering and endurance have been for my sake." "Oh, really? If he likes you so much, why is he so determined to marry me? Why doesn't he just marry you instead?" "That's because brother Fu can't bear to see me suffer. I might as well tell you, the plan to frame you with Xiao Gang was brother Fu's idea. He had already decided to give your job to me. Originally, he was going to use his mother's illness as a way to lure you in, but you suddenly changed. He had no other choice but to use Xiao Gang to set you up." Zhao Rui wasn't the least bit afraid. She looked right through me and told me everything. "Brother Fu only agreed to marry you for your house, your money, and your salary. If he didn't have an ulterior motive, he'd never treat you this way. He told me himself. He doesn't like you one bit. He's just using you. After all, you're gullible, obedient, and completely hung up on him." Zhao Rui thought I'd be furious, that I'd fly into a rage. Instead, I felt nothing but indifference. I already knew what kind of man Fu Zijing was from my past life. She didn't need to spell it out for me. I ended Zhao Rui's provocation with a glass of water. Drenched from head to face, she stormed off, cursing in anger. With the annoying noise finally gone, I picked up Fu Zijing's marriage application and studied it over and over. I was going to tear it up and throw it away, but I've changed my mind. Since Fu Zijing and Zhao Rui are so deeply in love, I'll do them a favor before I leave. I picked up the pen and signed Zhao Rui's name beneath the other one. Then, I grabbed the marriage application and headed straight for the marriage registry office. Just a few minutes later, I held the marriage certificate in my hands. A smile touched my lips as I looked at the two names printed on it, Zhao Rui and Fu Zijing. In this life, I offer my early blessings to Fu Zijing and Zhao Rui. May their love be everlasting and their bond unbreakable. Fu Zijing returned in the evening. And once again, he had brought me some pastries. He walked in to find me packing. Having sold most of my belongings, the room felt stark and hollow. Fu Zijing also sensed something was off. He glanced around the room and, grasping for something to say, remarked, "Lame, I can't help but notice the place seems a lot emptier. Where have all the things gone?" I replied flatly, "I got rid of whatever I didn't need." "Then why are you packing your bags?" "I lost my job. I can't stay in this dormitory anymore. It needs to be cleared out for another worker. So, I've packed everything up to move into the house my father left me." I told the truth, and Fu Zijing didn't doubt me. He warmly insisted I try the pastries he'd bought. I glanced at them, a cold smile curling at the corner of my mouth. These weren't pastries I liked. They were all flavors Zhao Rui preferred. So, Fu Zijing, if you're going to put on this act of being nice to me, shouldn't you at least do it properly? I was so annoyed. I hadn't meant to expose him, but in the end, I couldn't hold my tongue. "These are all savory pastries. I don't like savory ones. I prefer sweet." A look of embarrassment flashed across Fu Zijing's face. I remembered wrong. "Lame, it's all my fault. I'll buy the pastries you like from now on." I didn't say a word and turned to go inside the house. Seeing my cold attitude, a hurt expression crossed Fu Zijing's face. He took the initiative to ask about the marriage report. "Lame, have you signed the marriage report yet?" "It's done. I've got the marriage certificate too." Hearing this, Fu Zijing breathed a sigh of relief. "The marriage certificate, let me see it." "There's nothing much to look at. I've already put it away at the bottom of a trunk. It'd be a hassle to dig it out again." Fu Zijing seemed to buy my story and went off cheerfully to prepare dinner. The dinner was a lavish spread with fish and meat. Just as Fu Zijing and I picked up our bowls, a frantic knocking came from outside. Zhao Rui's voice accompanied the knocking. "Brother Fu, Xiaojing is suddenly vomiting nonstop. Please come take a look." I showed no reaction and kept my head down, eating. Fu Zijing paused, his chopsticks in midair, and looked at me. Instead of rushing out heedlessly as he used to, he looked at me cautiously and said, "Lame, if you're worried, go check on them, or we could go together." "I'll pass. I'm not family, and I'm not a doctor. I'd just be in the way." My words gave Fu Zijing pause. Outside, the knocking grew more frantic, and Zhao Rui's voice took on a tearful edge. In the end, Fu Zijing got up and left. "Lame, I'll just go take a look. I'll be back soon." I continued eating without much emotion. After dinner, I tidied up, washed, and went to my room to sleep. Fu Zijing did not return that night. The next day, I calmly moved all the things I had already packed to the new house. After a few trips back and forth, I overheard people at the factory talking. They said Zhao Rui's son was poisoned last night and almost died. He's still in the hospital under critical care and hasn't been out of danger yet. This never happened in my previous life, so I'm rather curious about it. How on earth did Xiaojing get poisoned? I was curious, but I didn't dwell on it. After all, it had nothing to do with me. It took about a day to get everything moved. Fu Zijing didn't return until the following evening. I was sitting alone at the dining table, having dinner. I didn't even look up when he came back, just kept on eating. He walked over to the dining table and sat down. "Xiaojing's been poisoned. It's serious." Rui was scared and all alone, so I stayed at the hospital with. I cut him off impatiently. "Can you not tell me about other people's problems? I don't care and I'm not interested." Fu Zijing was left speechless. After a long pause, he finally said, "Lame, are you angry?" "No, there's no point getting worked up over something that has nothing to do with me." Fu Zijing seemed to want to say more, but I had already stood up, collected the bowls and chopsticks, and headed to the kitchen. He stood in the middle of the room, his gaze heavy upon me. I offered no response and went straight to the bedroom. I was leaving tomorrow. With a strange calm, I washed up, got into bed, and prepared to rest. There was a knock at the door. I answered impatiently. "What is it?" "Lame, open the door. I have something for you." I opened the door to find Fu Zijing standing there, holding a red box. He handed me the box, his face full of anticipation. "Open it." I opened it without much feeling. only to find a gold ring inside. This ring never appeared before me in my past life, yet I remember its shape. It was in the shape of a plum blossom, exquisitely crafted and beautiful. In my past life, when Zhao Rui had made her fortune and came back to sell the house, she wore it on her finger when she met me. Back then, Zhao Rui looked like a wealthy socialite, dripping with jewels, while I was gaunt and worn. She raised her hand to show me the ring on her finger. This is the wedding ring Zijing bought for me. I remember with perfect clarity the suffocation, the rage, and the despair I felt in that moment. So why is this ring appearing before me now? I felt no joy, only disgust. I stared at Fu Zijing and enunciated each word slowly. What do you mean by this? Fu Zijing explained with a smile. This is the wedding ring I bought for you. Try it on and see if it fits. I didn't try it on. I just closed the box with cold indifference. Seeing my cold demeanor, Fu Zijing's expression turned somber. Not wanting to stir up any trouble before I left, I added nonchalantly, since it's a wedding ring, let's save it for the ceremony. We should honor the tradition. Hearing this, Fu Zijing's face lit up with a smile. All right then, I'll keep it safe and put it on you at the wedding tomorrow. The wedding? There won't be a wedding for him and me. Tomorrow's wedding will go ahead as planned, but the bride won't be me, it'll be Zhao Rui. After all, Zhao Rui and Fu Zijing are now legally and rightfully husband and wife, and what's more, I know Zhao Rui won't let the wedding proceed smoothly. After all, while Fu Zijing was busy helping her at the hospital, Zhao Rui still found time to go back home. She stopped me and said venomously that she wouldn't let me marry Fu Zijing, that tomorrow's wedding wouldn't go ahead as planned, and that she would stop at nothing to make sure it didn't happen. Zhao Rui thought her threats would get to me, but I just coldly said 3 words to her, suit yourself. The night passed quickly, and the next morning, Zhao Rui came looking for Fu Zijing again. Once again, it was about her son Xiao Zhang. Fu Zijing was in a difficult position. I'm getting married today, he said. Zhao Rui threw herself to her knees, blocking the doorway. Brother Fu, it was you who told me to come here with my child. You promised to take care of us. Now Xiao Zhang is missing. And you're going ahead with your wedding. How can you face us after this? Wailing, Zhao Rui called Fu Zijing away. As he followed her, he glanced back at me, standing coldly in the doorway. Lame, I'll be right back. Wait for me. The wedding will go on as planned. I didn't say a word, just offered a knowing smile. Fu Zijing thought I had agreed. As he and Zhao Rui hurried away, I spat out the words at their retreating backs. Fu Zijing, goodbye forever. I took out Fu Zijing and Zhao Rui's marriage certificate and placed it on the table. Then, picking up a pen, I wrote a letter for Fu Zijing on a piece of paper. I'm leaving. Fu Zijing, I wish you and Zhao Rui a long and loving life together. I put down my pen and paper, grabbed my luggage, and headed straight for the train station. I arrived at the station an hour early to wait, watching the minutes tick by. Finally, the boarding call began, and I followed the crowd through the ticket gate. Luggage in hand, finding my seat, I settled in and let out a long sigh. In this life, Yan Lame will never be anyone's appendage again. I'm going to find a new life of my own. The train whistle blew as it slowly pulled out of the station. My gaze drifted out the window. Goodbye, to the place I've called home for over 20 years. Just as I was turning away, I suddenly saw a familiar figure sprinting frantically towards the train. Fu Zijing, after arriving at the hospital with Zhao Rui. Fu Zijing was completely distracted. Xiao Gang was rushed into the operating room, and Zhao Rui sobbed quietly beside him. Fu Zijing, however, felt no urge to offer comfort or concern. He was just irritated. He remembered it clearly. When he left the hospital, Xiao Gang had already shown signs of recovery, and the doctor had even said it was nothing serious. How could his condition have worsened so much in just one night? This shouldn't have happened. His gaze fell on Zhao Rui's face. Her eyes were rubbed red and swollen, yet not a single tear fell. Seeing Fu Zijing's gaze upon her, Zhao Rui sobbed and leaned in, reaching out to grab his hand. Brother Fu, if anything happens to Xiao Zhang, how can I go on living? I just couldn't bear it. As Zhao Rui leaned in, Fu Zijing instinctively shifted aside. Zhao Rui had fully counted on Fu Zijing embracing her, planning to then throw herself into his arms, hold him tight, and weep. She was absolutely determined to stop Fu Zijing and Yang Lame's wedding. She simply had to ruin their marriage. Lost in her thoughts, she didn't notice Fu Zijing stepping aside. Zhao Rui was caught completely off guard and fell flat on her face, the pain making her see stars. Over there, Fu Zijing was also staring in astonishment at Zhao Rui lying sprawled on the ground. Zhao Rui cried out loudly. Just as he hesitated and was about to reach out to steady her, a man came rushing down the hallway. It was Engineer Li, whom Fu Zijing had called in to help with the wedding preparations. Engineer Li arrived breathless and panting. Zijing, something terrible has happened." Seeing Engineer Li, Fu Zijing's heart sank. He withdrew the hand he'd extended toward Zhao Rui and hurried over. "What's going on? Is it Lame? Is she angry?" "No, it's not that Lame is angry, it's Lame is gone. Fu Zijing wondered if he had heard correctly. Where could young Lame possibly go? Where on earth could she go? Both her parents are dead, and I'm her only family now. Engineer Li thrust the documents at Fu Zijing. "Look at this. I thought you were marrying young Lame. Why is the marriage certificate in your name and Zhao Rui's? And young Lame left you a suicide note." Fu Zijing snatched the marriage certificate and the letter from Engineer Li's hands. His eyes widened in horror as he read the names on the certificate. Then, seeing young Lame's final words, he turned and sprinted out the door. Behind him, Zhao Rui's anguished cries echoed, but Fu Zijing did not look back. Fu Zijing had only one thought in mind: he must keep young Lame by his side. He was determined to keep young Lame, no matter what it took. 15 years later, I returned to my hometown in glory. Having fought my way to success in Shenzhen, accompanied by my assistant, I returned to Jiangqing, the city I had called home for over 2 decades, to make an investment. 15 years later, River City has transformed beyond recognition, with no trace left of its former poverty and backwardness. The factory from back then has shut down, and all my former colleagues and acquaintances have long since gone their separate ways. As my assistant and I walked the streets, gazing at the sea of twinkling lights from countless homes, I was overwhelmed with emotion. I thought of my past self in my 30s, toiling day and night in the countryside. My face was etched with the harshness of wind and frost, my hands were rough and chapped, and I didn't own a single presentable piece of clothing. But now, I live in a spacious, sunlit villa in Shenzhen, drive a car, and run my own company. I married a man who cherishes me, and we have lively, lovely children. My in-laws treat me as their own, and my family life is harmonious and happy. It all stems from the choice I made back then. Who would have thought that 2 different paths could lead to such drastically different outcomes? Strolling through the streets of River City, the hawker's cry of sugar-roasted chestnuts reached my ears. I turned my head, and my assistant, already understanding my unspoken wish, called out to the chestnut vendor. The middle-aged chestnut vendor was bundled in a thick cotton-padded jacket, with a slight disability in one leg. He greeted his assistant with an ingratiating smile, and the familiar Jiangqing accent felt like a warm, familiar touch. I struck up a conversation. "You've lived here for quite a few years, haven't you, sir?" "That's right," he said. "I'm a true local, born and bred in Jiangqing. I've been living here for nearly 40 years now." The man deftly weighed out the sugar-roasted chestnuts, then skillfully packed and handed them over. As he handed me the money, the man looked up, our eyes met, and in his gaze, I saw shock and disbelief. The bag of hot candied chestnuts he was passing to me fell to the ground. His voice rose in pitch, cracking with emotion. You're Lame." I looked at the middle-aged man, his face weathered and worn, bearing the heavy weight of a difficult life. "You know me. Who are you?" I'm Fu Zijing. I stared at the man before me in shock, utterly unable to reconcile this gaunt, haggard, and disabled figure with the dashingly handsome Fu Zijing I remembered. By my reckoning, Fu Zijing should be under 40, yet he looked like a man in his 60s. Fu Zijing's gaze towards me was complicated, his lips quivering. "Lame, why won't you give me a chance? Don't you know I've been looking for you for so long?" I didn't understand why Fu Zijing was looking for me. He liked Zhao Rui so much, and I had already stepped aside for him. Shouldn't he be happy about my concession? But Fu Zijing's demeanor clearly suggested otherwise. In his previous life, Fu Zijing wasn't exactly someone who could command the wind and rain, but he did eventually rise to become the chief engineer at a Fortune 500 company. He was riding high, a picture of professional success. What happened in this life that kept him from going to the big city? Choosing instead to stay here selling candied chestnuts. Although Fu Zijing and I are old acquaintances, there's really nothing for us to reminisce about. Fu Zijing looked at me, too ashamed to even exchange pleasantries. The gap in our social standing filled him with humiliation. He limped away, pushing his cart of sugar-roasted chestnuts. I had no intention of prying into his affairs. Fu Zijing was just a passerby in my life. I had long since let it go, yet, the very next day, During the investment talks, I unexpectedly ran into the factory director. The factory director looked at me with a heavy sigh and began to tell me about Fu Zijing. That's when I learned what Fu Zijing had gone through after I left. After learning he had registered his marriage with Zhao Rui, Fu Zijing refused to let the mistake stand. He was determined to dissolve their marital relationship. However, Zhao Rui would not agree, in her bid to ruin the wedding between Fu Zijing and me. She had even fed rat poison to her son, Xiao Jiang. The initial dose of rat poison wasn't lethal, so Xiao Jiang was successfully treated at the hospital and pulled through. Unwilling to accept the failure of her scheme, Zhao Rui secretly administered another dose of rat poison to Xiao Jiang on the morning of my wedding to Fu Zijing. As a result, Xiao Jiang was rushed to the emergency room and fought for his life for several days before he was stabilized. However, he was left completely incapacitated. Reduced to a helpless invalid, dragging her son, who had become a useless wreck, Zhao Rui was dumbfounded. She had been utterly convinced that after I left, Fu Zijing would simply go along with the mistake and marry her, taking care of her and Xiao Jiang. It never occurred to her that Fu Zijing would refuse. Zhao Rui then threw a huge tantrum, trying to force Fu Zijing to take responsibility for her. Only then did Fu Zijing see Zhao Rui for who she truly was. He had no intention of marrying Zhao Rui, but she was not about to let him go. She spread rumors everywhere that Fu Zijing had slept with her, which was why I left in a huff. She wanted Fu Zijing to take responsibility for her and her good-for-nothing son. Zhao Rui refused to divorce to her dying breath, and Fu Zijing wouldn't budge on his refusal to marry her. The once deeply affectionate couple could now only see resentment in each other's eyes. Zhao Rui relentlessly hounded Fu Zijing. Eventually, she resorted to trickery to spend a night with him, after which she became pregnant. Upon hearing of Zhao Rui's pregnancy, Fu Zijing's mother came to persuade him to settle down and make a proper life with her. Fu Zijing had resigned himself to his fate and decided to build a proper life with Zhao Rui. Just as the two were settling into their new life together, an unexpected event occurred. Fu Zijing's mother broke her leg, just as she had in the previous life. Zhao Rui had already given birth to Fu Zijing's child, and she was unwilling to give up her job to care for his mother, as I had done before. Unwilling to make the sacrifice herself, Fu Zijing had no choice but to take leave to care for his mother. With no source of income, they were eating into their savings, and life was getting harder by the day. Zhao Rui had set her sights on Fu Zijing's engineer status, hoping for a comfortable life. Now, because he had taken too much leave, Fu Zijing received no salary, and his life was fraught with hardship. His frequent lateness also drew criticism from the factory management towards Fu Zijing. Later, as the factory's performance declined and layoffs began, Fu Zijing, the engineer least likely to be let go, found himself out of a job. Zhao Rui, the worker who had been brought in midway, was also rightfully laid off. With no source of income, life became a struggle. The household had 2 disabled members and a child crying out for nourishment. Zhao Rui, who had been counting on Fu Zijing for a comfortable life, was completely dumbfounded. Unwilling to stay with the dead-end Fu Zijing, she made a scene, demanding a divorce so she could remarry. Fu Zijing loathed Zhao Rui, blaming her entirely for his downfall, and thus stubbornly refused to grant the divorce. Their roles were now reversed. Locked in a bitter stalemate, Zhao Rui was never one to be trifled with, and Fu Zijing refused to grant a divorce, so she dumped her own mentally disabled child, Xiao Jiang, along with the child she had with Fu Zijing, on him to care for, while she herself went off to the city to fool around. Zhao Rui was a beautiful woman who knew how to dress well and spoke in a sickly sweet, coquettish manner. She quickly found herself a new man, and from then on, she never went back, instead living it up outside, keeping company with men. Fu Zijing couldn't abandon his paralyzed mother, so he had no choice but to stay in the countryside to care for her, occasionally running a small business to make ends meet. Zhao Rui found a new man and came back to divorce Fu Zijing, but he refused, determined to drag her down with him. The man Zhao Rui was involved with had some connections, and he had Fu Zijing's leg broken. Listening to the factory director's account and thinking of Fu Zijing's haggard, weather-beaten face I saw last night, it was like looking at a living portrait of my past self. I couldn't help but laugh. What goes around comes around. Story 2. At the wedding ceremony, my boyfriend's 8-year-old brother secretly set off firecrackers inside my wedding dress. The dress caught fire, leaving me severely burned and disfigured. My boyfriend's family promised my parents they would spare no effort to treat me and would take care of me for the rest of my life. but on their way home, overwhelmed with grief, my parents were involved in a car accident and died. My boyfriend's family immediately changed their attitude, saying that when I was rescued, my clothes were stripped off, making me an unclean woman. They directly gave up on treatment, took me home, and neglected me, leading to my death from infected wounds. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the time before the wedding began. Smiling, I asked my boyfriend, "Darling, would you like to have a different kind of wedding? You wear the wedding dress, and I'll wear the suit." Watching my playful friends and drunken boyfriend, I realized I had been reborn, returned to the night before the wedding. Back then, as I prepared to step into a new life with my friends' blessings, little did I know I was actually stepping into hell. My boyfriend's younger brother, Don, was the late-born child of the family, excessively spoiled and a textbook example of a brat, because at this very moment in my past life, as we bid farewell to our friends and headed back to the hotel to prepare for the wedding, we saw Don playing with firecrackers. I casually advised him a couple of times to be careful and not touch that thing, never expecting he would hold a grudge. During the wedding ceremony the next day, as I was walking from the audience area to the stage, he secretly stuffed firecrackers into the train of my wedding dress and lit them. The soft fabric of the dress caught fire immediately, the scorched material melting into my skin, continuously burning my entire body. At that moment, overwhelming pain consumed me. I don't remember how I was rescued or how I ended up in the hospital. Waking up in the hospital, I realized I had suffered severe burns and was disfigured. My boyfriend Miles Chen and his family, in order to protect Don, promised to do everything in their power to heal me and ensure Miles Chen would treat me well for the rest of my life. Our family's financial situation wasn't great, and my heartbroken parents had no choice but to suppress their hatred, prioritizing my treatment above all else. Little did anyone know, on their way home to pack belongings before returning to care for me, they were involved in a car accident, destroying the vehicle and claiming their lives on the spot. The Chen family immediately changed their expressions, cursing me as shameless and promiscuous, because on the day of the wedding, when I was rescued, my clothes were torn off in public. They refused to spend another penny on my treatment, discharged me directly, and left me at home without care. In the end, I died from an infected wound. Their family actually paid no price at all and even inherited what belonged to me and my parents. How can I possibly accept this? In this life, I'll make Miles Chen's family taste the bitter consequences too. After seeing off my friends, when I noticed Don playing with firecrackers, I still tried to gently persuade him with a few words. Don, firecrackers are very dangerous. It's better to stay away from them. If they explode, you could get hurt. Seeing this, Father Chen nearby became somewhat displeased. Don may be young, but he knows his limits. There's no way he could hurt anyone. In my previous life, I had a lot going on with the wedding and ended up arguing with Miles Chen, so my tone wasn't good. The Chen parents directly pointed at my nose and scolded me, saying I was meddling in their family affairs before even marrying into the family. Seeing Dong's small eyes glaring at me fiercely, I sighed. I had done all I could. Uncle and Auntie, rest early. Today Miles Chen went with me to decorate at the hotel. Tomorrow morning, his groomsmen will pick him up, and then they'll come to the hotel together to get me. With that, she pulled the drunken Miles Chen and was about to leave. I hadn't closed their front door tightly, and after just a few steps, I heard Mrs. Chen's rather sharp voice. She hasn't even married into our family yet, and she's already nitpicking and finding fault with our son. If she does marry in, will our Don even have a peaceful life? Hearing this almost made me laugh in anger. I wondered why this brat always showed such hostility towards me every time I came. I'm afraid the Chen parents have probably said such things more than once. Who knows, maybe they played a part in that incident in my past life when the brat burned me with firecrackers. Do I really have to go through with this marriage? I'm from out of town, and my parents along with relatives and friends are all at the hotel. Upon arriving at the hotel, I sent Miles Chen off to sober up first while I went to find my parents. I wanted to see if I could persuade my parents to support me in running away from the wedding. There are plenty of ways to get back at their family. There's no need to sacrifice me in the process. But as soon as I mentioned to my parents that I didn't want to get married, the two of them, who had been wiping away tears, suddenly stopped and threw me out. He even threatened that if I dared to make trouble, he wouldn't acknowledge me anymore. Helpless, I returned to the room where a group of our friends and the makeup artist were waiting. After we finished our tasks, Miles Chen sobered up a bit, seeing everyone enthusiastically urging me to try on the wedding dress, I suddenly shuddered and quickly pulled Miles Chen aside, giving him a gentle smile. "Darling, how about we have a unique wedding? You wear the wedding dress, and I'll wear the suit." I've developed a complete aversion to wedding dresses now and never want to wear one again in my life. Seeing the excitement, everyone immediately started egging us on. Miles Chen didn't want to agree, but also didn't want to outright refuse me and upset me right before the wedding, so he came up with an excuse. "Cleo, our parents and relatives are quite traditional people. If we do something too trendy, they might not be able to accept it." At that moment, the makeup artist suddenly chimed in. "Don't worry, bro. It's just about giving your wedding a unique opening. After we're done, I'll quickly change you back into your original outfits, and we'll stick to the original plan. It'll be fast. Trust my skills." The makeup artist's bold chest-thumping guarantee wasn't because she suddenly had a change of heart, but because I had just sent her a huge red envelope via WeChat. Super huge. Miles Chen's friend, who was also enjoying the drama, egged him on. "Come on, Chen, maybe posting it online will make you go viral. You could become an internet celebrity and never have to work again. You just got married. This could be a double win for both love and career." His friend really knew him well, hitting the nail on the head. He had wanted to start a self-media channel for a long time but never gained traction. Wasn't this the perfect ready-made material? Seeing him waver a bit, I decided to fan the flames directly. "If you agree to this, after we get married, I'll hand over my salary card to you. You'll have full control over our family's finances." Making empty promises. Who can't do that? "For now, let's just get through this wedding." But as soon as these words were spoken, Miles Chen's good friends immediately started egging him on. "I'm so moved by this. If my wife were willing to hand over her salary card to me, forget wearing a wedding dress. I'd even wear a bikini." "Brother Chen, even after your wife said that, you still won't agree? Are you even a man?" With the atmosphere hyped up to this point and the alcohol kicking in, Miles Chen agreed without hesitation. Everyone burst into cheerful laughter, including me. Miles Chen agreed to it, and many things were prepared smoothly. I took out my phone and ordered a delivery service to buy a wig similar to Miles Chen's hairstyle, then went to the mall to buy a pair of thick-soled, height-increasing shoes. The makeup artist and the MC had to rearrange the schedule with us because we changed our minds at the last minute. But since I privately added extra money, they came to accommodate us. After a busy night, once we finished our makeup, I followed Miles Chen's friend to his house. Afraid that people might notice something unusual, I simply wore a mask, and Miles Chen's friend came out to cover for me, saying it was a special performance prepared for the wedding. Although Miles Chen's parents had quite a few complaints about me because of this, we managed to avoid being discovered and quickly set off to pick up the bride. As for Miles Chen, although he was thin, his build was still more robust than mine. Following my suggestion, the makeup artist covered his head with a large piece of lace veil. From the outside, it looked faintly visible, giving the impression of a woman, but it was impossible to make out any details. Seeing this, I was extremely satisfied. Seems like the money was well spent. Finally arriving at the ceremony venue that had been a nightmare in my past life, I peered through the mask at my parents sitting in the audience, feeling a pang of sorrow in my heart. But now wasn't the time for sentimentality. I searched around and finally spotted my target, the mischievous kid, Dong Dong. Noticing him sneaking around, I curiously followed and took a look, only to be utterly shocked. In his previous life, he had only gotten a few small firecrackers, but this time, he was actually holding a bunch of sparklers and small strings of firecrackers in his arms. I quickly had someone pull him over to Mr. and Mrs. Chen, insisting they keep an eye on the kid and not let him set off fireworks recklessly. Only after seeing the family nod impatiently in agreement did I feel slightly relieved and went to follow the MC's procedures. Just before the ceremony began, I spotted a small figure sneaking up to Miles Chen, who was clueless in her wedding dress, and couldn't help but twitch my lips under the mask. "Please welcome the bride." With the MC's voice, Miles Chen, wearing pristine lace gloves, led my father onto the stage. All eyes in the room were fixed on the two of them, and no one noticed a child sneaking around behind the bride. Perhaps someone did notice, but they likely dismissed it as just a mischievous child wanting to join in the excitement behind the bride. No one noticed the child secretly slipping firecrackers into the enormous skirt of the wedding dress. Then, they pulled out fireworks and stuffed them in as well. Finally, as the bride stood still at the front, the mischievous kid seemed a bit too greedy, the items weren't easy to light, the movements became too obvious. Spotting this, I quickly removed the mask from my face and shouted to everyone, "Quick, stop him, Dong Dong." But everyone thought it was part of the show, and instantly all eyes in the room were drawn to me. Many gasped in surprise, and soon the entire hall erupted in cheers. Meanwhile, under the cover of this commotion, Dong Dong successfully lit the fireworks. The sound of the fireworks burning was drowned out. Terrified, I reached out toward my father. Seeing me on the stage, he also laughed, let go of the bride Miles Chen, and strode toward me. The wedding dress itself is highly flammable, especially with its large train and oversized veil, so the dress on Miles Chen caught fire even faster than mine did in my previous life. When the fireworks ignited, he hadn't yet noticed anything amiss. Dong Dong, being small in stature, couldn't see what was happening on stage. When he noticed the firecrackers starting to explode nearby, he immediately began clapping and jumping with excitement. Seeing me continuously reaching out and shouting at him, take it off, Miles Chen finally sensed something was wrong. The burning sensation on his body, accompanied by his younger brother's malicious shouts beside him, he looked down and was horrified to find himself on fire. Panicking, he tried to tear off the wedding dress to save himself and also attempted to call for help from those around him, but the flames gave him no time to cry for help, just like in my past life. Within mere seconds, he was engulfed by the fire. No, his fate was even worse than mine. The burning veil on his head wrapped around him, turning him into a human torch. His screams instantly filled the scene, but he was even more ruthless than me. Realizing he couldn't break free from the flames, he immediately grabbed Dong Dong, originally frantic upon seeing their son on fire. The Chen parents now shrieked in horror as their eldest son tightly held on to their youngest son. Mr. Chen, in a panic, grabbed a bottle of liquor from the table and hurled it at Miles Chen. The alcohol splashed over him like adding fuel to the fire, causing the flames to surge 2 meters high. Miles Chen, in agony, let go. This is trying to kill Miles Chen. Even if I wanted to punish them, I couldn't let this torch ignite the scene and cause a fire. Everyone at the scene except Miles Chen's family is innocent. I quickly ran to grab the fire extinguisher and rushed over, shouting, "Move aside. You actually want to kill him, I won't allow you to harm Miles Chen." As I spoke, I aimed the fire extinguisher directly at Miles Chen and sprayed vigorously. As for the potential side effects of spraying a fire extinguisher directly at a person, sorry, I'm just a desperate woman trying to save the love of my life. Seeing him about to be killed, how could I think of anything else? At the wedding venue, surprise turned to horror. Police cars, fire trucks, and ambulances arrived at the scene simultaneously. Seeing Miles Chen so severely burned, they quickly lifted him into the ambulance for emergency treatment. While Miles Chen's mother started causing trouble nearby, she grabbed the emergency doctors with Dong Dong, the mischievous child's scalded hand, insisting they treat her younger son's injuries first. After being refused, she threw a tantrum and yelled, "They're both my sons. How could I not care? But the older one might not even survive. So why not treat our younger one first?" The surrounding friends and relatives who heard this could barely hold back their reactions, all trying to persuade her to stop making a scene. Seeing Miles Chen's injuries were much more severe than in my previous life, how could I let him die now? He still has his uses. I charged forward, shoving aside Mrs. Chen, who had been obstructing the doctor's emergency efforts, and screamed at her through tears, "It's all because of your son. Why are you so determined to let Miles Chen die? What did he do wrong? Wasn't it enough that you wanted to burn him to death? Now you're even stopping the doctors from saving him. How could parents be so vicious?" Hearing this, the Chen parents panicked. With the police present, how could they afford to be labeled as murderers? They immediately tried to stop me from speaking, but long displeased relatives, friends, and the police directly intervened to hold them back. Since Miles Chen's condition was urgent, I accompanied him to the hospital first, while my parents and Mr. Chen stayed behind at the wedding venue to handle the aftermath. Mrs. Chen followed us to the hospital with the unruly child to treat his wounds. Miles Chen suffered severe burns, with large areas of his skin fused to the burnt synthetic fabric, along with residue from the fire extinguisher chemicals. I sat outside the operating room, staring blankly at the red light. What was Miles Chen thinking when I was brought here in my past life? Before I could even begin to ponder the answer, someone suddenly slapped me across the face. Mrs. Chen, holding Dong Dong's hand wrapped up like a pig's trotter, glared at me with fierce hostility. "You shameless woman, If it weren't for you causing trouble at the wedding, how could my son have gotten into an accident? I covered my face as the hatred accumulated over 2 lifetimes surged within me, staring fixedly at her. I loudly demanded, your younger son's mischief caused your elder son to be seriously injured. How is that my fault? The brat glared at me with hatred and suddenly shouted, the firecrackers my mom bought for me were meant for you. If you hadn't swapped clothes with my brother, how could I have set them off on the wrong person? What does this mean? Could it be that in my past life, when he stuffed firecrackers on me, it was actually instructed by the Chen parents? Seeing the shock on Mother Chen's face at these words, I didn't want to think any further. A surge of old and new hatred overwhelmed me, and with a roar, I lunged forward and pinned Mother Chen to the ground. With a loud thud, the back of her head hit the floor, leaving her dazed. I swung my arms in wide arcs, slapping her face wildly over a dozen times, then grabbed her head and smashed it against the ground. He kept shouting while fighting, this is premeditated murder. You're not just trying to kill me, but also Miles Chen, you're all beasts, worse than pigs and dogs. The people around were trying to intervene, but I looked too fierce. Even the mischievous kid Dong Dong was too scared to step forward. It wasn't until the hospital security arrived that we were pulled apart. At that moment, seeing that I was restrained, Chen's mother tried to break free from the people holding her and came at me to hit me. How could I take such a loss? I immediately shouted. Call the police, help me call the police and arrest this murderer. My husband, who's still in critical care, was murdered by them. Hearing this, Chen's mother shrank back in fear. Initially, it was just a mischievous child causing an accident that led to his brother's severe injury, but if people were to find out she was the mastermind behind it, whether it would be considered murder or not would be hard to say. Overwhelmed by intense fear, she had no choice but to suppress her anger. With a stiff expression, she approached me to curry favor. Cleo, you've misunderstood, the child was just talking nonsense, don't be angry. As a mother, how could I not wish for my son and daughter-in-law to be happy? Mrs. Chen thought she was being clever, but she didn't realize that this only made her appear guilty. So, even before Miles Chen came out of the operating room, his mother was taken away by the police, as the legally married wife of Miles Chen. The mischievous little boy Dong Dong was temporarily placed under my care as his sister-in-law. At first, he was intimidated by the ferocity with which I had just gone berserk and hit his mother, so he didn't dare act out and sat there obediently like a quail, but he was used to being the little tyrant at home, and on top of that, from morning till now, no one had eaten a bite of food. The adults were barely holding on, let alone a child. He jumped right in front of me, kicked my leg, and barked orders like a little emperor. Stupid woman, I'm hungry, buy me a burger. My response was a sharp slap across his face. Eat, 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 that's all you think about. Your brother's in this state because of you, and you still have the nerve to ask for food. Everyone around knew the whole story through that farce and had no objections to me teaching the brat a lesson. But a spoiled child's bad behavior is cultivated over years. How could one slap make them behave? He immediately started screaming, unleashing an ultrasonic wave attack that made everyone waiting outside the emergency room frown in disgust. Before anyone could complain, I covered his mouth, grabbed his injured hand, firmly restrained him, and after apologizing to those around us, dragged him out. Walking to the deserted area behind the hospital, I let go, and he immediately rolled on the ground in pain. Unfortunately, there was no one here who cared about him. I stood coldly by, watching as he made a mess of himself, unmoved. Finally, when he felt the pain had lessened, had made enough of a scene, and, most importantly, was too weak from hunger to continue, he stood up, looking at me with some fear. Tell me why you set off firecrackers at me. If you don't speak, you know what I'm capable of. I clenched my fist. The kid was smart enough to know he had no one to back him up now, so he didn't dare throw another tantrum. Under my threat, he spilled everything. My mom said we should humiliate you at the wedding so it'd be easier to control you after marriage. That's why she told me to play with firecrackers in your wedding dress. What a stupid and vicious family. How pitiful that I didn't see through them before my wedding in my past life. Dong Dong followed me back to the emergency room with a pitiful look. Forget about getting food from me, he'd only get air to eat. As soon as I arrived there, a nurse called me over to pay the bill. How could I possibly be willing to pay Miles Chen? Pointing at my disheveled state, I forced a bitter smile and said I'd pay once my family arrived. The nurse was quite kind and understanding. We sat there for quite a while before my parents and Mr. Chen finally walked in. Afraid my parents might be persuaded to foot the bill, I rushed over and knelt before Mr. Chen in front of everyone, pleading desperately, "Dad, please, I beg you, use the wedding gift money to pay for Miles Chen's hospital fees. He's lying in the operating room right now, his life hanging by a thread. You can't just ignore your eldest son because you have a younger one." Yes, I am emotionally blackmailing him. Father Chen is a man of little capability, extremely calculating, but also obsessed with saving face. If I had directly asked him for the money, he would absolutely have found a way to make my parents pay instead, so I spoke up first to cut off his escape route. Seeing me like this, he instinctively covered the black bag in his hand, then seemed to think better of it and turned to my dad instead. "Look at this, in-law." I gave my mom a meaningful look, and our mother-daughter quickly made her understand. She promptly pulled my dad, who was about to speak, over to my side. Unable to shift the blame and unwilling to pay the money, he clenched his bag strap and stood there, seemingly at a loss for words. How could I give him time to react? I immediately started kowtowing, speaking in a clear and articulate voice loud enough for everyone around to hear. "Dad, I beg you, Miles Chen is still young. As long as we have the money to treat him, he can definitely recover. Please don't give up on him." At this point, many of the onlookers began explaining the situation to the newcomers. It was that family. The elders used their mischievous younger son to set off firecrackers in the bride's wedding dress. Who would have thought the young couple was trendy? And it was their son wearing the dress. He got burned so badly and is still in critical condition. This family is really too much, unwilling to spend money even on their own son's treatment. The girl just wanted the wedding gift money, and they didn't even want to give that. Old Chen, hearing the murmurs around him, twitched his face and quickly stepped forward to help me up, shoving the black bag into my hands. "Child, what are you doing? I'm his father. Of course I'd sell everything to get him treated. Don't you worry." I stood up with his support. After taking the bag, he glanced at Dong Dong, who was silently tugging at him, and casually asked, "Where's your mom?" I kindly explained to him. "Mom is suspected of murder and has been taken away by the police." Mr. Chen was instantly stunned and stood frozen in place. "What?" Ignoring the frantic and furious Mr. Chen, I picked up my bag and took my parents to pay the fees for Miles Chen. I briefly explained to my parents on the way that it might have been Chen's mother who instructed someone to set off firecrackers in my wedding dress, all to humiliate me at the wedding and control me after marriage. My parents were both furious and terrified upon hearing this. My mom patted her chest and said to me, "Thank goodness it wasn't you wearing that dress. If it had been you lying in the operating room, how could we old folks have gone on living?" My dad patted my mom's back to calm her down, but he was also seething with anger. He turned to me and said, "Divorce, we're divorcing him. My precious daughter can't marry into such a family and suffer." I waved my hand, stuffed the remaining money from the paid bill into my own pocket, and walked out with my parents holding the empty bag. "Not divorcing yet. His family is always afraid of losing out in marriage, insisting on splitting everything with us, and even playing tricks behind my back. I can't accept ending it like this." My mom froze for a moment looking at me, then smacked my head. "You silly girl, don't you dare grow a lovesick brain now." But I couldn't tell my parents about my past life, afraid they'd worry, so I just said I knew what I was doing and told them not to worry. Finally, they had no choice. My dad sighed and told me, "If you need anything, just tell us. Don't suffer in silence." Speaking of which, I actually had something to say. No matter what they say, our family must never lend them any money, not a single cent. After giving my parents these instructions, we returned to find that Miles Chen had already been moved out of the operating room and into the ICU, where he needed to be monitored for a while. At this point, Mr. Chen saw our family and couldn't wait to take the black bag from my hands. When he felt it was empty, his face darkened, but it seemed she still had something to ask of me, so she held back, forcing a smile, and fawningly said, "Cleo, Miles Chen has already been rescued. What your mother did was indeed wrong, but she meant no harm. Could you talk to the police and get her released?" "Release? Of course she'll be released. Someone like her wouldn't get a long sentence even if she went in, and besides, Miles Chen might not even want to press charges. Of course she'll have to come out, just in time to face the ending I've prepared for her." I reached a verbal agreement with Mr. Chen, who promised to cover all of Miles Chen's medical expenses and ensure his full recovery. In return, I agreed to let Mrs. Chen out, not feeling at ease letting my parents return home alone. I first escorted them back before going to pick up Mrs. Chen. When she saw me again, her eyes darted away, a far cry from her previous shrewish demeanor. The family of three reunited in front of the hospital room. After a tearful embrace, they surprisingly turned to leave together, showing no intention of taking care of Miles Chen. I didn't stop them. When Miles Chen was out of danger and woke up in the general ward, covered head to toe in white bandages, he saw that I was the only one in the room with him. Noticing his eyes darting around, I understood what he meant and considerately told him, Dong Dong got burned these past couple of days too. Mom and Dad are more worried about him, so they might not have much time for you right now. Don't overthink it. Hearing this, I saw the light in his eyes dim considerably. I sneered inwardly. Was he really feeling hurt already, in my past life? When I was lying in the hospital bed, they barged in and told me straight out that my parents had died in a car crash because of me, that they had no money left for my treatment, and then dragged me out of the hospital right then and there. But I'm a kind-hearted person, knowing Dong Dong would come to the hospital for a dressing change today. I waited there in advance. When I saw this family of three, I didn't bother with words. I just grabbed Dong Dong and ran toward the ward, of course. The parents couldn't just let it go. Instinctively, they chased after me. Once inside the ward, the couple started hurling abuse at me, not caring if it disturbed Miles Chen or even noticing that he was awake. With his parents backing him up, the brat Dong Dong tried to hit me. I dodged, and he ended up falling flat on the ground after missing his swing. The couple hurriedly came forward to help, and seizing the moment when they fell silent, I spoke weakly, Mom, Dad. You promised before that you'd spare no expense to cure Miles Chen, even if it meant going bankrupt. Now that he's doing much better, don't you think we should send him to a hospital in the provincial capital? The medical care there is better than what we have here. Upon hearing this, Father Chen immediately retorted, I've already asked the doctors, even if his extensive burns heal, the skin grafts alone will cost a fortune, not to mention the potential long-term effects. He won't even be able to work in the future. We can't count on him to support us in our old age, so why bother treating him? Mother Chen chimed in, exactly, the family's money is all for Dong Dong in the future. How can we waste it on this useless one? I looked at Miles Chen lying on the hospital bed, his eyes closed and his whole body trembling, suppressing the laughter in my heart, and said, but all this happened because of Dong Dong. You can't favor your younger son and ignore the life or death of your eldest son. Mrs. Chen rolled her eyes and retorted, that's because he's useless. If he hadn't swapped clothes with you, this wouldn't have happened. He has no one to blame but himself. The family's shameless and unreasonable behavior was enough to make outsiders feel disheartened, let alone Miles Chen, who was lying vulnerable on the hospital bed, at that moment, like a complete love-struck fool. I immediately made a declaration of love. If you won't take care of him, I will. I'll go live every day to earn money, and I will definitely cure him. Hearing this, Mrs. Chen's eyes lit up, and she immediately nudged Mr. Chen, who was about to speak, suddenly changing her tune. Miles Chen is our son, of course his treatment is our responsibility as his parents. When the time comes, we'll handle the live streams ourselves. I knew this family couldn't resist such blatant financial temptation. 1-inch hey folks, my son has extensive burns and still needs skin grafts. If you donate, I'll show you how burn patients go to the bathroom. Family, this young man got burned on his wedding day, didn't even get to the honeymoon. Can he still function down there? I'll answer that later, but first, let's see those donations roll in. Mr. and Mrs. Chen held their phones, completely disregarding Miles Chen's dignity. Filming his burns daily, viewers with morbid tastes would make bizarre requests, which they'd fulfill for money without hesitation. Sometimes when they filmed me, I didn't resist, performing the role of a devoted wife eagerly awaiting her husband's recovery all day long. They completely disregarded the patient's dignity and feelings, so when Miles Chen recovered enough to move slightly, he pointed outside the hospital room, telling the two to leave, but having already tasted the sweetness of live streaming, why would they listen? Even Dong Dong followed their example, holding up a phone to film Miles Chen every day. My brother got burned and looks like a caterpillar now, all black. Come on everyone, send tips. I'll livestream when they remove the bandages later. But now I'm playing the role of a devoted and loving wife. Just as the two of them were livestreaming with great enthusiasm, I knelt down and shouted, Mom and Dad, you've earned money from livestreaming too. Please, I beg you, give Miles Chen a skin graft. The two of them had been making money by selling their misery and bizarre antics, but my outburst scared them so much they quickly cut off the live stream. Miles Chen's mother glanced at him on the hospital bed with disdain. He's already burned so badly, what's the point of a skin graft? He's ugly enough as it is. Skin grafting for burns isn't just about aesthetics. Delaying the procedure can lead to severe consequences such as delayed wound healing, infections, sepsis, and even organ failure. However, these two were convinced that their eldest son would never fully recover from his burns and wouldn't be able to support them in their old age. They refused to spend another penny on him, only wanting to squeeze out whatever remaining value he had as quickly as possible. But that depends on whether I allow it. I straightened up and snapped at them. If you're unwilling to pay, I'll expose you to the media. You won't be able to exploit Miles Chen for profit anymore. Hearing this, Mr. and Mrs. Chen reluctantly did the math with grim expressions and grudgingly agreed. After everyone else had left, Miles Chen held my hand with tears of gratitude. Cleo, thank you, you're the only one who truly cares about me. I comforted him verbally, saying, don't cry, it's not good for your injuries, don't worry, no matter what happens to you, I'll always love you. But deep down, I couldn't help but think sarcastically. This guy was just blaming me a couple of days ago when he could finally speak, saying it was my fault for swapping clothes with him that led to his burns. With a family like that, how could you expect anything good to come from bad stock? The Chen family agreed to provide skin grafts for Miles Chen, but they were unwilling to spend more money and insisted on the cheapest skin graft option from the doctor. I have no objections to this. For me, as long as he survives for now, nothing else matters. Post-surgery care is supposed to be meticulous, but the Chen parents forcibly took Miles Chen out of the hospital, claiming they couldn't afford the medical expenses. Of course, I had to go with them. Their family happened to be unwilling to take care of Miles Chen and were more than happy to have me there, so no one objected. After taking Miles Chen back home, their family started playing the victim, claiming they had no money left for post-surgery care and had no choice but to bring the child home. They continued filming Miles Chen without restraint. After they finished, I quietly found Dong Dong. Seeing him counting his live streaming earnings, I confronted him directly. No matter how much you earn, it's useless. All that money will have to be spent on your brother's treatment eventually, now that he's back home. He feels he has support and isn't afraid of me at all. He snapped back, bullshit. My mom said everything in this house is meant for me. My brother is just a useless burden now. I sneered. So what? No matter what, your brother was raised by your parents. And didn't they pay the 100,000 yuan for his skin graft surgery? With that, I ignored him and went to the kitchen to cook for Miles Chen. Not long after, I heard the sound of Miles Chen's painful wailing coming from his room. I put down what I was holding and rushed in, only to see Dong Dong holding a stick while blood seeped from Miles Chen's body. That was, the newly grafted skin being knocked open. Meanwhile, Dong Dong laughed at him without restraint. How ridiculous. Don't think acting pitiful will make mom and dad feel sorry for you. Let me tell you, everything in this house is mine. You won't get a single advantage. Hearing the commotion, the Chen parents rushed over. Mr. Chen immediately scolded. Why did you provoke your brother for no reason? The family paid for your surgery, and you didn't even take care of it properly. Now that there's a problem, don't expect us to pay for another one. Mrs. Chen pulled Dong Dong out of the room and suddenly shouted at me from the kitchen. You wasteful woman. Why didn't you turn off the gas if you weren't in the kitchen? Are you trying to poison the whole family? At this moment, I noticed Miles Chen glancing toward the kitchen in pain. As a good wife, of course, I immediately went to comfort him, carefully examining the wound. Sure enough, a small piece was broken. With a heartbroken look, I cried, what should we do now? A piece is broken, and your parents won't fix it for you. It's all my fault for being useless, for not having the money to get you surgery. Woo-woo. Miles Chen gasped in pain but still managed to comfort me. No, it's not your fault, it's all they're doing. The hatred in his eyes was chilling to behold. I said to him firmly, let's monitor it for a few days first. If it gets worse, I'll go out and borrow money if I have to. I'll make sure you get treated. Hearing this, a glimmer of hope seemed to rekindle in his heart. The way he looked at me was filled with gratitude, as if I were the love of his life. If I hadn't seen him look at every member of the family with equal hatred, I might have believed it. I know he hates me. He believes his burns were suffered in my place, I have to admit. His intuition is sometimes quite accurate. Miles Chen's injuries weren't improving. The poor conditions at home, combined with my lack of genuine attentive care, caused his wounds to worsen. I showed him the information I found online. The internet says if you don't get this treated soon, your condition might worsen, and it could even kill you. What should we do? Right now, Mom and Dad only see you as a cash cow. They don't want to treat your illness. As I spoke, I started crying. Miles Chen. What should we do? You're going to die. What should we do? I don't want you to die. Every day, apart from begging the Chen family to treat Miles Chen, I repeated these words to him. Finally, as his injuries grew increasingly severe, the light in his eyes began to fade. He asked me to help him exercise, saying he wanted to use the bathroom on his own and reclaim his dignity. I certainly respected him and quickly brought him a wheelchair that very day. The Chen family is becoming increasingly unreasonable. They believe every penny in the household is theirs, all to be left to Don Don in the future. Now they've even started eyeing the money in my pocket and from my parents' family. When they saw me bring back the wheelchair, they scolded me for being wasteful, spending money on a useless person and squandering resources. The light in Miles Chen's eyes grew increasingly dim, and he began sitting in his wheelchair, frequently gazing toward the kitchen. I sensed something was wrong and started making excuses every day to go out and borrow money for his surgery, running out each time. But every evening, I would return with a look of despair and tell him I hadn't managed to borrow anything. Of course, to make it convincing, I really did go out to try borrowing money. However, the people I borrowed money from were all Miles Chen's friends and relatives. My own friends and relatives are all out of town, so it wasn't easy to borrow from them. Some kind-hearted ones were willing to lend me 1,000 or so, while others refused. I didn't push them too hard. With me not at home, that family's live streaming became even more excessive, which took an even heavier toll on Miles Chen's mental and physical well-being. Watching their live stream, I felt that what they were doing would drive any normal person insane within days, especially Miles Chen, who is already in a very fragile state of mind right now. Finally, one day before I was about to go out again, Miles Chen grabbed my hand. Don't go out. Okay, anyway, I can't be cured anymore. If I die, so be it. I just want you to spend one last good day with me. Damn, I almost jumped up when I heard that. Don't think I don't know how many sleeping pills this guy hid while I was resting, or how many times he practiced sneaking into the kitchen alone. The Chen family wouldn't even glance at him outside of live streams, finding him an eyesore. Only I, who didn't mind staying by his side, set up a small bed in his room to care for him, and only I noticed, he's planning to make his move. From his perspective, I've been good enough, haven't I? Even when he's like this, I've stuck by him, lent him money for treatment, and fought with his family so he could get skin grafts. He actually wanted to take me down with him in one go. I always said nothing good could come from a family like that. Of course, I had no intention of burning bridges, but I shouted excitedly, "No, I won't let you give up. I'll keep going out to borrow money today. Sooner or later, I'll get enough for your surgery. Don't lose heart." Hearing this, he hung his head and asked me, "Don't you love me? Aren't you willing to stay with me forever, to be with me for all eternity?" I really have to wonder if my brain was clouded by lard before. How could I have ended up with such a thing? But the show must go on. I shook him off directly, grabbed my coat, and walked out. After a few steps, with tears welling up in my eyes, I turned back to look at him. "Of course I want to be with you forever. How could you doubt my love for you? I'll go borrow money right now. Even if I have to crawl on my knees, I'll get the money for your surgery. We'll be together from now on." He stared at me intently without saying a word. I didn't wait for his response either and turned to leave. After stepping out, I thought for a moment and ran to borrow money from my friends. They all knew about my situation and, unable to persuade me to leave, generously offered what they could. Then I had my parents transfer me some money as well, and after some thought, I went ahead and borrowed from a few online lending platforms. At one point, I opened the Chen family's live stream to take a look. I don't know what got into them today, but they were even more outrageous than usual. It felt like they didn't even treat Miles Chen as a human being. He had less dignity than a circus monkey being gawked at by the crowd. None of them noticed the frequent glances Miles Chen kept casting toward the kitchen, until the live stream ended. I went to a fast food restaurant and ordered the cheapest meal. After eating, I sat there spacing out for a long time. Then, I kept searching on my phone for information about skin grafting and related topics until late at night, when I slowly made my way to Miles Chen's house. Before I even reached their door, I keenly caught a whiff of a rotten egg smell. I quickly took a few steps back in alarm, hurried downstairs to call 119 on my phone, and then dialed the police. Their family's misdeeds might harm the neighbors, and that wouldn't be good. The police arrived quickly. After evacuating the residents of the neighborhood, the firefighters went up to ventilate the room by opening the windows. A long time later, they came down and told me, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but your family members have all passed away." Soon, the police and ambulances went up. The case is quite simple. A man, burned due to his younger brother's actions, chose to turn on the gas and take his entire family's lives because of the harsh treatment from his relatives. His newlywed wife, who was also intended to be killed, survived because she went out to borrow money out of concern for his condition. A marketing account learned of this incident and wrote an article about the man's ordeal. It also stated, out of love, he decided to spare her life. This incident quickly gained traction online, with Miles Chen being dubbed the god of pure love. Receiving much praise, which is quite ironic. He didn't become famous while alive, but turned into an internet celebrity after death. I wonder if Miles Chen would feel comforted knowing his wish came true in such a way. As for me, the sole survivor of the Chen family, Miles Chen's wife inherited the majority of the family's assets, including the money the Chen family recently earned from live streaming. To be honest, I have no qualms about taking the donations from those who watched the Chen family's bizarre and sensational live streams. After finally settling the Chen family's property, I repaid the borrowed money and, under the sympathetic gazes of many, left the place and returned to my hometown. For the rest of my life, I want to spend it with my family.